everyone, welcome to Wicked West Books. My name is Meg West, and today I am doing my January and February wrap-up. Let's get into the video. For the months of January and February, I read a grand total of 16 books, most of which were short stories, but they were counted through Audible as separate books, so, I'm going to take credit for all 16. The first book I read of the year was The Highlander Takes a Bride by Lindsay Sands. This is, of course, a historical romance, and historical romance is not complete without another genre thrown in, and this one was a murder mystery. When Sid hears that her cousin has just lost her fourth husband in as many years, and that there are suspicions around the bride, she kind of feels the need to inspect what's going on at this castle, especially since Sid knows that the first husband was actually murdered by the bride. And while she's there, she meets the new lord of the castle, and they kind of get along very well. And together they work it out to figure out, did the cousin kill her husband again? Or was it someone else who is coming in and using the cousin as an easy scapegoat? I gave Highlander Takes a Bride 4 out of 5 stars. I listened to the audiobook, which I checked out from the library, and it was really fun because, especially when the narrator has the Scottish accent. After that, I picked up Before I Let Go by Nurike Nijam. I have no idea how to say her name. This was the Booksplosion book of the month for January, and this story takes place in a small town in Alaska. These girls grew up and they were just the absolute best of friends, and then one of them had to move away. And she comes back on her spring break to visit her best friend and the town that she grew up in, only to find that her best friend has passed away. And things in the town just aren't quite what they should be. They aren't how she remembers it. And even though she's only been away for a few months, the town is treating her like she's a complete outsider and does not understand what was going on in the town as she was away. And she just basically spends her entire time there searching for the truth of what happened to her now deceased best friend. I was not the biggest fan of this book. I didn't hate it, but I didn't really like it, so I gave it a 2 out of 5 star rating. There were just some things that just didn't work for me for the story, in addition to it just not being my normal genre of book to read. So it was entertaining, but not amazing. After Before I Let Go, I read an entire trilogy. Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I read all 3 books in order, which is Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morning Star. And this was a reread for me. I have read these before, and I enjoyed them even more the second time. The Red Rising trilogy follows the main character, Darrow, who is a lowly red in a society that builds its hierarchy on the color that you belong to. Red is at the very bottom and gold is at the very top. Now, the Reds don't like being treated this way, and a lot of them have banded together to fight against the Gold and try to get rid of this color scheme that keeps most of their family basically in slavery. And really, the entire plot of this trilogy is just trying to get everyone on equal footing. And I reread this trilogy because a 4th book in the series just came out, Iron Gold, and I wanted to prepare for reading that. After that, I got started into all of the short stories that go along with the Powder Mage series by Brian McClellan. And these books are, or rather, these short stories are, Forsworn, Servant of the Crown, Murder at the Kinnan Hotel, In the Field Marshal's Shadow, which contains the short stories of Hope's End, The Girl of Hoosh Avenue, The Green-Eyed Viper, The Face in the Window, and Return to Honor. In addition to the short stories, The Mad Lancer, and The Ghosts of the Tristan Basin. Again, a lot of short stories, and if you want to get into them, they are read in that order, except for Return to Honor, which goes after the first book in the series. The first book in the series is what I read next. That book is Promise of Blood by Brian McClellan. This is the first book in the Powder Mage trilogy, and you want to know what I picked up right after I finished the first book? The second book, and then also the third book. So after this, I read The Crimson Campaign, quickly followed by The Autumn Republic. Now these take place in a world that's unlike any of the other ones I have ever read, and It's written very well, so I do recommend it. In this world, you have 3 different kinds of magics. There is the privileged, which use their fingers to pull on the different elements of the world, their dominant hand to select an element, one for each finger, and their recessive hand to direct where the power goes. And unless they are wearing their gloves, they possess a very real chance that they could burn themselves out using their sorcery. Then there is the lesser ones, which are called the Knacked. K-N-A-C-K-E-D, the Knacked. And they will have some special ability of some point or other, as well as an ability to open their third eye. Now, the best demonstration for this one, in my opinion, is one of the main characters, and that is Inspector Adamant. And Adamant has a perfect memory. Anything he's seen, it's just automatically remembered, and that is his knack. Another option is Olam. Olam is a knack, and his knack is that he does not need to sleep. He never has to sleep. And then the third and the most important one for this series is the Powder Mage. And basically, they can consume black powder, either by sniffing it or just eating it, and it gives them heightened abilities, better eyesight, better hearing. They have more endurance, they can run a lot faster than usual, it allows them to not feel pain as much, and it just boosts their entire system. The downside is that if you eat or snort too much powder, you can become powder blind, and that's just not a good way to interact with the world. And of course, it is addictive. Now, the short stories give a lot of the background setting up for the trilogy, so if you want to read those beforehand, you can, and it might give you a better idea of what's going on in the world. But if you want to jump right into this first book begins with one of our main characters, Field Marshal Tamis, killing the king. Straight out of the bat, just know that he murdered the king and their entire privileged cabal, their entire privileged group that worked for the king, all basically murdered in their sleep. All of their dying words were not to break Kresimmir's promise. And Kresimir was a god that had been on the planet a few thousand years ago, and Tamis finds it kind of eerie that even though he killed them all in their separate bedrooms, they all had the exact same last words. So he hires Adamant to look into that while he starts running this country that used to belong to a king, but not anymore. And the final book that I read during the month of February was Reign the Earth by A.C. Galgan. Not sure if that's how you pronounce her last name correctly, but Reign the Earth, which was the Booksplosion book of the month for February. Reign the Earth follows a girl who has an elemental power, and her elemental power is the earth, and in order to stop a blood feud between her people and the people of the Bone Lands, she marries their king to try and bring peace to her people. This is very, very dangerous for her because this king, her new husband, absolutely hates the elementals and wants to kill them all. Just wipe them all off the face of the planet. He's tried. He wiped out the race that had the elemental powers, but the powers had a stronger will to survive and just jumped to new people. Main character, Shalia, being one of them. She has quite a bit of troubles that she has to go through to try and keep the peace between the people, especially when her husband, the king, really doesn't want to. I struggled with this book quite a bit, actually. The first 60% or so I absolutely hated. I really just wasn't into the book, and it wasn't necessarily the hard themes to the book because it does start off like right at the marriage. They'd never met each other before, and it does show the night of the wedding, which was very uncomfortable to read. And I don't have issues normally with that, but I really hated reading from the perspective of a character who did not love her husband and was still forced to basically get pregnant. And just, that's there, so just be aware of that, and I didn't enjoy it. Once, however, she realizes, hey, this is actually an abusive relationship and I cannot deal with this anymore, that's the point where the book actually took off for me, and that happens right at about 63%, I think, is where I noticed I was actually starting to enjoy the book, where she realizes that she's actually worthwhile and she deserves love, and he just does not. The entire book, I was wishing for an assassination attempt against him to succeed. So yeah, that was my opinions. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. That last 40% of the book was actually really, really good. I just did not enjoy the first 60%. So yeah, that is it. That is the 16 books that I read during January and February, and all in all, it was a pretty good reading month. I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of the year goes. I know that March book of the month for Booksplosion is going to be They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, which I have already read, and I also had a lot of fun a few months ago actually going to Oklahoma City to get it signed. And the book that my husband and I are going to buddy read for the month of March and put a video discussion out at the end of is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. So yeah, that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. I post videos every Wednesday, and I will see you guys next week. Have a wicked day.